is a function? A function is something that you give an input and get an output. In math, we've seen functions before, right? Where we have something like y equals 3x. Where you put in x and you get out y. So if I put in a 1, I would get out a 3. A similar concept is used in computer science when we need to reuse a certain block of code over and over again. So a function is essentially something that you give values and get out values. And we use functions when we don't want to duplicate our code over and over again, when we need to perform a certain task many times in a single program. So the next question is, when and how would I use a function in computer science? So if we take a look at my example program over here, there's basically 3 steps to using a function in C++. Number 1, you need to declare the function before main. This is going to tell the compiler that, hey, when I use this name, I want this input to go to the block of code that I will later define. So this is kind of telling the compiler, like, hey, I'm going to use a function named cube. Next, you need to define the function. This is where we tell the compiler or the program what to do when we call cube. So, let's kind of break down the function into 3 parts. Part number 1 is the return type. This is the type that the function is going to return when you call it. And we'll get to function calls in just a second. The second part is the function name. So we're going to call this function cube, because we're going to cube the number that we get. So this is the function name. Part number 3 is the input. So this is what I'm inputting to the function. So this is like x in this mathematical equation. So we're going to call this input num. It's just going to be some number. So that's the declaration, 3 parts. The return type, name, and input parameter. So then we would go down here to our definition, which is defining what we want the function to do when we call it. So we have to rewrite basically the definition, int cube, and then int num. So this is the return type, name, and input parameter again, just letting the compiler know that this is the same function. And then we're going to want to take this number and multiply it by itself 3 times, and then return the result. So we're basically cubing the number, like the name would suggest. So that is just a quick overview of how you would define a function. Now, if we actually want to use the function, we're going to have to call the function in a function call. So if I was in main and I declared a variable named 3, and then I called the function cube 3. This is how you call the function. This is inputting the value of 3 into the function cube. Now, function call is similar to a variable's name being used, in that when I use the variable name 3, the program knows that I want to use the value of 3. But for functions, when you call a function and use the function name, the compiler knows that I want to go to the function cube and use this input parameter. So it's kind of like jumping down here in code. So for this, you can input a variable or a literal value. So if I input 3, the compiler is going to convert this 3 into the value and pass this value into this function. So this function would get 3 in as its parameter, as its input. And then it would take num and multiply it by itself 3 times, store that in result, and return it. So this is why we have to declare the return type, so that the compiler knows that we're returning an integer when we call this function. And then when this function returns, so basically we're passing 3 down here, we're multiplying 3, and then we're returning the result back up here. And then it's going to assign that result to 3 cubed. And a similar situation would happen here when you pass it the actual number 3. Actually, the same thing happens, it's just one less step. So we pass 3 directly into the function, multiply it, and then 27 in this case would get assigned into also 3 cubed. And then if we see out, the console would read 27 and 27, because these two functions would both return 27. So in a program where we need to use, if we wanted to print out like all the cubes from 1 to 10, we could use this function over and over again and just call cube and send it 10 different numbers, and it would return the cube of all those numbers. And it saves you a lot of code and it makes everything more neat and efficient. So that is a quick overview of functions. Thanks for watching.